Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the live studios here in Radha Lane. We're in the middle of the Krishna Fest. And Indradumna Maharaj and Govinda Maharaj and Achintya Krishna and Akinchana Krishna and Havi, my godbrothers, and completely talented people are here, rocking the place. And here we are, reading Srimad-Bhagavatam again. We're so fortunate. I was just talking to the devotees here that are gathering to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And here's Bhakta Matt is here. Hare Krishna. Welcome home. And we were just talking about you. All positive, all good. Don't worry. Huh? You'll hear about it later, I'm sure. Anyway, and here we are. It's leading up to tomorrow's Janmashtami. And the next day is Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. The two most important days of the year for us. And I was just saying to the devotees here, how fortunate we are to be able to hear together the Srimad-Bhagavatam daily like this, in small installments, all the way through. You know, it's not happening anywhere else. Not that people aren't reading Prabhupada's books, but this in particular, this format, is not happening anywhere else. So we're very fortunate. We should take advantage of it, and I expect, hopefully, you guys will keep it together while I'm gone. But anyway, I'm going to do it every day, and you can get together and maybe even listen to it through the live Facebook or whatever. It depends on the timings, because I'm going to be in other places of the world. But right now, let us launch into where we are in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, because it gives us, and I'll talk a little bit about it the next couple of days, about how these parts of the Bhagavatam are really important to enable us to enter into Krishna Lila and enter into understanding the personality of Godhead. Because awakening our personal relationship with Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the goal of life. And as soon as we actually get it under our belt, as I was just saying to the devotees here, when Prabhupada was here and the book started to come out, when he started going through the Bhagavatam, he only brought the first 3 volumes with him from India, and then took him some time to get the devotees together and get the organization going enough to be able to publish the books at a decent rate. But once he did, it was like magic. We were getting a new book every month or 2, and we would go out and distribute them to the people, and the ecstasies and mercy that we got from Srila Prabhupada, it's hard to describe. But I'm hoping, I'm praying that we can develop from this enclave that's developing here around this regular hearing of the Bhagavatam like we used to do in the early days. And from that taste, I hope we build up a team to do this, to distribute the books, hear the books, distribute the books, and be in total blissed out ecstasy. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's hear Sanatana Goswami's glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Try to understand just how auspicious what we're doing is. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvan Doditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bhando Matsangin, Madguro Mad Mahadana, Man Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, sadhu ta dayin, atini chochata kara, hanamun chagadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're in the second canto. Shukadeva Goswami is beginning the teachings to Maharaj Parikshit, and he's explaining the universal form. And by understanding properly this universal form, we will be able eventually to understand the personal form of Krishna and who he is, so we will be able to approach him in the proper mood, not thinking that he's an ordinary person just because he acts like a human being when he comes here. He has an original human form, but he's not a human being. And the things that he does, the things that he teaches, definitely prove it. So we're reading a historical document. The things that are going on in this book has all happened. It's history of the universe. Kali's always trying to call us back at this time, right? All right. We're on text 28 or 29? 29. 29. Second canto, chapter 1, text 29. His arms are the demigods, headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears, and physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumaras, and material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is the blazing fire. That reminds me of the point you made about Javi's class this morning, where he made the point about, how do you be a big personality, a celebrity performer, and at the same time stay Krishna conscious? And he said, well, when I'm up on stage and the lights are there, I always have 2 spotlights pointing at me, and I imagine that those are Krishna's eyes looking at me while I perform. Anyway, it's an application. Purport. The description of the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead made in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is further explained here in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. The description of the Bhagavad Gita 11:30 runs as follows. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people from all sides with your flaming mouths, covering all the universe with your effulgence. You are manifest with terrible, scorching rays. In that way, Srimad-Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study for the student of the Bhagavad Gita. Both of them are the science of Krishna, the absolute truth, and so they are interdependent. The conception of the Virat Purusha, or the gigantic form of the Supreme Lord, is said to include all the dominating demigods, as well as the dominated living beings. Even the minutest part of a living being is controlled by the empowered agency of the Lord. Since the demigods are included in the gigantic form of the Lord, worship of the Lord, whether in his gigantic material conception or in his eternal transcendental form as Lord Sri Krishna, also appeases the demigods and all the other parts and parcels, as much as watering the root of a tree distributes energy to all of the tree's other parts. Consequently, for a materialist also, worship of the universal, gigantic form of the Lord leads him to the right path. One need not risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. The real entity is the Lord himself, and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in him only. Text 30. Now when it says imaginary, it doesn't mean that it's not real. It means that it's temporary. The reality is eternal. The spiritual world, with all the forms and the relationships and the families and all the things that we have here, which keep us in the material world basically, are all temporary. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious to us. It isn't obvious to everybody, obviously. Otherwise they wouldn't think twice about what they were doing. The sphere of outer space constitutes his eyeballs, and the sun is his power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and the night, and in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is Varuna, the director of water, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue. Purport. To common sense, the description of this verse appears to be somewhat contradictory, because sometimes the sun is described as the eyeball, and here the outer space sphere is so described. But there is no room for common sense in the injunctions of the Shastras. We must accept the descriptions of the Shastras and concentrate more on the form of the Virat Rupa than on common sense. Common sense is always imperfect, whereas the description of the Shastras is always perfect and complete. If there is any incongruity, it is due to our imperfection and not the Shastras. That is the method of approaching Vedic wisdom. Now, Prabhupada many other times would say that it isn't illogical either. It's not. It's sometimes above common sense, but most of it is common sense. Therefore, he used to say it was translogical. It's logical, but beyond mundane logic. And it requires the working knowledge of the philosophy to be able to see it like that. And that's why it's important to hear the Bhagavatam gradually all the way through like this, with Prabhupada's purports, to be able to understand. Text 31. They say that the Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord, and his jaws of teeth are Yama, god of death, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring, illusory material energy is his smile. This great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us. Purport. According to Vedic assertion, this material creation is the result of the Lord's casting a glance over the material energy, which is described herein as the most alluring, illusory energy. The conditioned souls, allured by such materialism, should know that the temporary material creation is simply an imitation of the reality, and that those who are captivated by such alluring glances of the Lord are put under the direction of the controller of sinners, called Yamaraj. The Lord smiles affectionately, displaying his teeth. The intelligent person who can grasp these truths about the Lord becomes a soul fully surrendered unto him. Text 32. Modesty is the upper portion of his lips. Hankering is his chin. Religion is the breast of the Lord, and irreligion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living entities in the material world, is his genitals, and the Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. Purport. The Lord is not impersonal. The Supreme Lord, is not impersonal, as misconceived by less intelligent thinkers. Rather, he is the Supreme Person, as confirmed in all authentic Vedic literatures. But his personality is different from what we can conceive. It is stated here that Brahmaji acts as his genitals and that the Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. This means that as a person, he is complete with all bodily organs, but they are of different types with different potencies. When the Lord is described as impersonal, therefore, it should be understood that his personality is not exactly the type of personality found within our imperfect speculation. One can, however, worship the Lord even by seeing the hills and mountains, or the ocean and the sky, as different parts and parcels of the gigantic body of the Lord, the Virat Purusha. This Virat Rupa, as exhibited by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, is a challenge to the unbelievers. So this is an interesting point. Srila Prabhupada often would answer the question about, well, Srila Prabhupada, when we look out at the universal form of the Lord, we see so many wonders, so many beautiful things, sunsets and special forests of trees and mountains and lakes, and the natural beauty is sometimes breathtaking. So how do we, not become, attached to that, and at the same time appreciate it? And Prabhupada answered the question in general with the conception that just imagine this is that beautiful, what the reality is like. Just imagine if this creation is that beautiful, when you see something that's very, very attractive and very beautiful, you should understand it's just a reflection, and a temporary reflection, of the supreme reality, the spiritual world. And then that should pique your curiosity to know more and more what it's like there, and the intensity of your desire to want to go back there. So you don't have to, you can have it, it's like, what's the word? The sentence, have your cake and eat it too. You can have all those beauties and relationships and the love and everything that's wonderful only eternally, without having to go through changes and fighting and all these different things that go on in the material world, suffering, Without the suffering, we get the beauty and the relationship and the tastes and the emotions and exchanges and everything, but without the suffering. So we should want to go there. Okay. Text 33. O King, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. Purport. The personality of God, it is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly thought by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about the past and future, along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the modes of nature act under his direction only, and as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord, and thus the Lord is never inactive, as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as is always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusha. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead. without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. So this is the second answer that Prabhupada would give. You see, those beautiful things, and you can see them, as I said, as a reflection of the reality. But you can also think of them in terms of these bodily parts of the Lord to give your mind an opportunity to think more and more of the personality, the personal features of the Lord, to adjust, a time-worn mind and intelligence which has been dulled by millions of births within this material world, thinking that the forms of the material world are everything, that they are eternal. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. Text 34. O best among the Kurus, the clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The terminations of days or nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. Text 35. The principle of matter, Mahat Tattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord, as asserted by the experts, and Rudradeva is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals and all quadrupeds are situated in the belt zone of the Lord. Text 36. Varieties of birds are indications of his masterful artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and angels all represent his musical rhythm, and the demoniac soldiers are representations of his wonderful prowess. Purport. The atheistic sense of the Lord is manifested, that's a mistake. What does it say in the book? That's my mistake, I read it wrong. This is why I got to have a checker. When you read, sometimes you make a mistake when you're reading. My checker. Can you be my checker? Will you be my checker? Yeah. Oh, good. The aesthetic sense the aesthetic sense of the Lord is manifested in the artistic, colorful creation of varieties of birds like the peacock, parrot, and cuckoo. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas and Vidyadharas can sing wonderfully and can entice even the minds of the heavenly demigods. Their musical rhythm represents the musical sense of the Lord. How then can he be impersonal? His musical taste, artistic sense, and standard intelligence, which are never fallible, are different signs of his supreme personality. The Manu Samhita is the standard law book for humanity, and every human being is advised to follow this great book of social knowledge. Human society is the residential quarters for the Lord. This means that the human being is meant for God realization and association with God. This life is a chance for the conditioned soul to regain his eternal God consciousness and thus fulfill the mission of life. Maharaj Prahlad is the right type of representative of the Lord in the family of Asuras. None of the living beings is away from the Lord's gigantic body. Each and every one has a particular duty in relation to the supreme body. Disruption in the matter of discharging the specific duty assigned to each and every living being is the cause of disharmony between one living being and another. But when the relation is reestablished in relation with the Supreme Lord, there is complete unity between all living beings, even up to the limit of the wild animals and human society. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed this living unity in the jungle of Madhya Pradesh, where even the tigers, elephants, and many other ferocious animals perfectly cooperated in glorifying the Supreme Lord. That is the way to peace and amity all over the world. Text 37. Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas, his arms are the Kshatriyas, his thighs are the Vaishyas, and the Shudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. Purport. Monotheism is practically suggested here. Offering sacrifices to many demigods under different names is mentioned in the Vedic literatures, but the suggestion made in this verse is that all those varieties of demigods are included in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are only the parts and parcels of the original whole. Similarly, the divisions of the orders of human society, namely the Brahmanas, the intelligent class, the Kshatriyas, the administrators, the Vaishyas, the mercantile community, and the Shudras, the labor class, are all included in the body of the Supreme. As such, sacrifice by every one of them in terms of pleasing the Supreme by feasible goods is recommended. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter, but also with other, I got distracted when I saw the local saint come in. My mind was attracted to him and I lost my place. Haribol Sarva. Pretty nice kirtan this afternoon. Out of this world. Yeah. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter and grains, but with the progress of time, human society has produced varieties of goods by transforming materials supplied by God's material nature. Human society, therefore, must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory. And that will bring about perfection in human society. This is very important. That's why Prabhupada, there aren't very many sentences that Prabhupada actually, in his own original manuscript, made italics for emphasis. Very few. This is one of them. I'll read it again. So important. Human society, therefore, must learn to offer sacrifices, not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods, in the propagation of the Lord's glory. And that will bring about perfection in human society. Prabhupada defined the Sankirtan movement as this: the sacrifice to use everything in the world in glorification to the Lord, through the deity worship, through the book distribution, through the festivals, through the preparation of wonderful, delicious prasadam from all the ingredients that we can accumulate, the best, and then then distribute them to the people and let them taste nectar instead of the things that they're tasting now. So this is the perfection. Human society, therefore, must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory. And that will bring about perfection in human society. The materialists, they criticize us. You're spending so much money on flowers that they're going to spoil tomorrow? Or all these food, this is all wasting your time. Why don't you make some money? why don't you go out and get a job? I mean, that's one of the... Anyway. The most expert book distributors, when we first started in the airports and here in America, sometimes different CEOs would watch us approach people that we'd never met before and convince them to take a book full of stuff like this, just from having met them and talked to them. And they would come up and offer us jobs and positions, and we would just laugh at them. They couldn't figure it out. They'd go away shaking their heads, Because why? Because when you start engaging in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya and perfecting your human form of life and helping to perfect the human society, all the other tastes, they become like, it's a joke. It's a joke. The intelligent class of men, or brahmanas, may give direction for such sacrifices in consultation with the previous acharyas. The administrators may give all facilities to perform such sacrifices. The Vaishya class or mercantile community who produce such goods may offer them for sacrifice, and the Shudra class may offer their manual labor for the successful termination of such sacrifice. Thus, by the cooperation of all classes of human beings, the sacrifice recommended in this age, namely the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, may be executed for the common welfare of all the people of the world. Text 38. I have thus explained to you the gross material, gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord, because there is nothing more than this in the material world. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.10, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has verily explained that the material nature is only an order-carrying agent of His. She is one of the different potencies of the Lord, and she acts under His direction only. As the Supreme Transcendental Lord, He simply casts a glance over the material principle, and thus the agitation of matter begins, and the resultant actions are manifested one after another by 6 kinds of gradual differentiations. All material creation is moving in that way, and thus it appears and disappears in due course. So this answers the perennial question of, God. What is God? Even in science, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Who's that? Newton? Newton. So people think that therefore things are just going automatically. But logic dictates that there must be an original pusher of that reaction. So what's the original push for all those chain of reactions? If you can conceive of that and accept that there must be an original push, then you can understand who God is. And that's Krishna. But He's so transcendental and powerful that He doesn't have to get out there, like your car doesn't work anymore, you have to get out in the back and push it. He's got all the energies at His disposal, and all the energies want to serve Him. We're in a world where the energy doesn't want to do anything. Therefore, even our own bodies, we've got to lug around. If you get an accident, you got to lug it around, and tolerate while it heals itself. It's amazing. I'm learning so much by having this. Just leave it there, and it just heals itself. I mean, you went through something even heavier than me. Heavy. So the material nature is actually a pastime of the Lord, but not in the way that the spiritual world pastimes are, because that's just for transcendental pleasure. But this is an opportunity for us to have our place where we can think we're free, just like a parent will give, a baby a playpen, and when it's first born, if you give it a playpen this big, they think, oh, this is great, so I can do whatever I want. But once they get a little bigger, you got to make the playpen a little bigger, otherwise they get all upset. So like that, finally the whole universe is there, is our playpen, Anyway, you get the point. But now we're understanding that original push is simply a glance. He can do everything just by glancing. He can get all of the material nature in the whole universe pregnant just by glancing at once, at one time. And we're thinking we're God? Hello? As the Supreme Transcendental Lord, He simply casts a glance over the material principle, and thus the agitation of matter begins. And the resultant actions are manifested one after another by 6 kinds of gradual differentiations. All material creation is moving in that way, and thus it appears and disappears in due course. Less intelligent persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot accommodate the thought of this inconceivable potency of the Lord Sri Krishna, by which He appears just like a human being. His appearance in the material world as one of us is also His causeless mercy upon the fallen souls. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, but by His unbounded mercy upon His pure devotees, He comes down and manifests Himself as the personality of Godhead. Materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with atomic energy and the gigantic situation of the universal form, and they offer respect more seriously to the external phenomenal feature of material manifestations than to the nominal principle. Remember, we learned about that yesterday. The nominal principle of spiritual existence. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities. And it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all-pervasive. Read that again. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities. And it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all-pervasive. Because the materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience. Because they are unable to accept the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat feature of His transcendental form. And herein, Srila Shukadeva Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there is nothing beyond this gigantic feature of the Lord. None of the materialistic thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of His gigantic body, and by one's intelligence only can one think of Him in any manifestation of the material world: the forest, the hill, the ocean, the man, the animal, the demigod, the bird, the beast, or anything else. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form, and thus the flickering mind can be fixed in the Lord only and nothing else. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demoniac challenge of godlessness. I'll read that again. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demoniac challenge of godlessness and bring about gradual development of devotional service to the Lord. Everything being a part and parcel of the complete whole, the neophyte student will gradually realize the hymns of the Ishopanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. Thus one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are parts and parcels of the Supreme Body. I mean, how beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? These books teach us how to think spiritually, how to think, feel and will in devotional service. They're so profound. I got to read this again. Sorry. I don't want to get carried away here, but this is just too wonderful. Everything being a part and parcel of a complete whole, the neophyte student will gradually realize the hymns of the Ishopanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. Thus one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are parts and parcels of the Supreme Body. I mean, that's such a profound statement by Prabhupada. Okay, text 39. One should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as an ordinary person creates thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate his mind on Him, the only, all blissful, absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. Nowhere to go, nobody to blame. It's all here once you get it. You won't be able to blame anyone else for whatever goes wrong, and you won't be able to take the credit for whatever goes right. Freedom. Purport. In this verse, the process of devotional service is indicated by the great Goswami. Is that Maharaj? Yeah. Is he going away? He's coming? Oh, he went. Haribol Maharaj. In this verse, the process of devotional service is indicated by the great Goswami, Srila Shukadeva. He tries to impress upon us that instead of diverting our attention to several branches of self-realization, we should concentrate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the supreme object of realization, worship, and devotion. Self-realization is, as it were, offering a fight for eternal life against the material struggle for existence. And therefore, by the illusory grace of the external energy, the yogi or the devotee is faced with many allurements which can entangle a great fighter again in the bondage of material existence. A yogi can attain miraculous successes in material achievements, such as anima and lagima, by which one can become more minute than the minutest, or lighter than the lightest, or in the ordinary sense, one may achieve material benedictions in the shape of wealth and women. But one is warned against such allurements, because entanglement again in such illusory pleasure means degradation of the self and further imprisonment in the material world. By this warning, one should follow one's vigilant intelligence only. The Supreme Lord is one, and His expansions are various. He is therefore the supersoul of everything. When a man sees anything, he must know that his seeing is secondary and the Lord's seeing is primary. One cannot see anything without the Lord's having first seen it. Shall I say that again? Hare Krishna. The Supreme Lord is one, and His expansions are various. He is therefore the supersoul of everything. When a man sees anything, he must know that his seeing is secondary and the Lord's seeing is primary. One cannot see anything without the Lord's having first seen it. That is the instruction of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So whatever we see or do, the supersoul of all acts of seeing or doing is the Lord. This theory of simultaneous oneness and difference between the individual soul and the supersoul is propounded by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the philosophy of Achintya Bedha Beda Tattva. The Virat Rupa, or the gigantic feature of the Supreme Lord, includes everything materially manifested. And therefore, the Virat, or gigantic feature of the Lord, is the supersoul of all living and non-living entities. But the Virat Rupa is also the manifestation of Narayana, or Vishnu. And going further on and on, one will eventually see that Lord Krishna is the ultimate supersoul of everything that be. The conclusion is that one should unhesitatingly become a worshipper of Lord Krishna, or for that matter, his plenary expansion, Narayana, and none else. In the Vedic hymns it is clearly said that first of all Narayana cast a glance over matter, and thus there was creation. Before creation there was neither Brahma nor Shiva, and what to speak of others. Sripad Shankaracharya has definitely accepted this, and that Narayana is beyond the material creation, and that all others are within the material creation. The whole material creation, therefore, is one with and different from Narayana simultaneously. And this supports the Achintya Bedha Beda Tattva philosophy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being an emanation from the glancing potency of Narayana, the whole material creation is non-different from him. But because it is the effect of his external energy, Bahiranga Maya, and is aloof from the internal potency, Atma Maya, the whole material creation is different from him at the same time. The example given in this verse very nicely is that of the dreaming man. The dreaming man creates many things in his dream, and thus he himself becomes the entangled seer of the dream, and is also affected by the consequences. This material creation is also exactly like a dream-like creation of the Lord, but he, being the transcendental supersoul, is neither entangled nor affected by the reactions of such a dream-like creation. He is always in his transcendental position, but essentially he is everything, and nothing is apart from him. As a part of him, one should therefore concentrate on him only, without deviation. Otherwise one is sure to be overcome by the potencies of the material creation, one after another. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.7 as follows: Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpak Chaye Punastani Kalpadao Visrijam Yaham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. The human life, however, is an opportunity to get out of this repetition of creation and annihilation. It is a means whereby one may escape the Lord's external potency and enter into his internal potency. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, first chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The First Step in God Realization. So, let's have some reflection. I want to say one reflection I was thinking towards the end, that, there's a really strong temptation to to go right to Krishna's personal pastimes, 10th canto, and want to hear them and dwell on them. And many, many people in India especially, they take this path. It's called sahajism. That without understanding this, without accepting this philosophy properly, and learning to see Krishna in a way that allows us to resist the temptation of thinking that he's an ordinary little boy when he steals the butter from the neighboring, housewives, or dances with the gopis in the middle of the night, and all these things that he does that are just out of conception of mundane morality. So we need to know this philosophy. We need to be able to defend Krishna and defend Krishna's honor and Krishna's position with persons who are still bewildered by Maya, but are thinking that they know Krishna. That is preaching. That's what preaching is. And all the tools are given in these purports. Clear as a bell. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's have some reflections and anything that came out. Yes, Math.
I had a question about text 31.
Mm-hmm.
It says, the Lord smiles affectionately, displaying his teeth.
Mm.
When it was talking in regard to people that were, from what I understand, they're conditioned souls, but still attached to material energy.
Yeah.
And they're put under control of Yamaraj.
Yeah.
Why does the Lord smile affectionately, displaying his teeth? I don't really understand that.
Well, why are we pleased when we see our friend or our child or our whatever smile at something when we do? And when they see the teeth, the full smile, look at the emojis they're coming out with now. There's a smile like this, then there's a smile like this, and there's a smile where tears coming out of the eyes, and the smile where the guy's rocking around like this, like he's rolling around on the floor, laughing like he can't. So there's different moods, and those moods are all coming from Krishna.
But if they're put under the control of sinners, why is the Lord smiling?
Reflection. To reflect the Lord smiling, it's not directly his smiling. It's not directly his smiling. That's the point. The point of the universal form is we see something and we're pleased by it. And the Lord, it's like, how do I use an example? It's like a father who's watching his son doing something that's completely, useless, like he's building a sandcastle. He's building a sandcastle, and he's getting all excited about it. Dad, did you see this? Look at this. And then a wave comes and goes, boom, and this father's just smiling. When there's another place in the Gita, in the beginning of the Gita, where this term is used, prahasan. Let me see if I can remember the verse. Prahasan. Anyway, I don't remember the exact Sanskrit, but I remember exactly where it is. When Arjuna asked Krishna to take the chariot in between the two armies to hear the Bhagavad Gita, while he was doing it, he was smiling because he knew it was going to happen. He knew that Arjuna was going to get bewildered. He sees all his friends on both sides of the battlefield, and now he's getting it. Oh, these people are all going to get killed, and they're my friends and relatives and teachers and gurus and superiors and inferiors. And he's sorry, I can't do this. This is out to lunch. How can we do this? And Krishna's smiling. It's a knowing smile. because he knows what's going to happen. So all the material personalities are all running around and they're thinking they're doing something so important. They're building up this and they're crashing it down and they're building it up. And Krishna's smiling. It's like, what are you doing? Come over here and you can get the real thing. Because he's not vengeful. Krishna's not vengeful. He's not a sadist. He's not putting us through all this, just to torture us. He's letting us have what we want, just as a father lets the child have what he wants. And sometimes he'll even give something to the child when he grows up old enough that he can have a knife or a pellet gun or whatever it is, and he knows, wait a second, he's not mature enough to have this without doing some damage to somebody or something. And yet the kid just, goes crazy and cries, beats on the ground, beating the hands and legs and insisting, and finally he just lets him have it. Out of love. Only. No other reason. That's how we can see God's love even in this perverted world. And then when we get right down to it, this universal form description is very important because why? Because it's all going on. 311 trillion years of our history of this universe in one out-breath and in-breath of Mahavishnu. So we're thinking it's so important, but to him it's just, it's nothing. And to Krishna, that's just an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of Krishna. It's not even a blink of his eye in terms of time. So when we learn to see through the eyes of the Shastra, that's why it said, you can't really see anything unless Krishna sees it first. Without the sun, what are you going to see? Without the light, turn out the light bulbs. Put down the shutters, shut the door, everything. What will you see? Nothing. And yet we're so proud of our eyes. Can you show me God? I'll accept you as a guru if you can show me God right now. Okay, Guruji. That's what Prabhupada would say. He'd put his boot in his face. Something.
It's powerful.
Is it in nice contrast, like Arjuna becomes totally despondent and frustrated?
Yeah.
He's like falling apart, and Krishna just smiling.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
Krishna knows that he will be.
Exactly. And this brings another point. Thank you. Sorry, but this brings another point that I was thinking and I almost forgot. You jogged my memory. In the Bhagavad Gita, like there are descriptions here describing how the Bhagavatam unpacks the Gita. You read the Gita and it's all there, but to get it, this detail, it's very difficult. You have to be very advanced to read the Gita and get all of this. So therefore, it leads to the Bhagavatam. Therefore, I asked Govinda Maharaj tonight after his kirtan, which was out of this world kirtan, and he was doing all his prema dhvanis, and they're very nice. He's paying obeisances to everything and everyone in the spiritual world. And I came up to him afterwards and I said, Maharaj, and I gave him a big hug. And I said, Maharaj, you got to add one thing to your prema dhvani, the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Because remember, we read it just the other night. We read it in a purport that the holy name leads to the Gita, leads to the Bhagavatam, and then you get the personality of Godhead in the Bhagavatam. The details. Prabhupada told us, if you study the Bhagavatam properly and learn it properly, you will become the most learned person in the world. 100 PhDs you'll have. Yes, Bhakta John.
Is Narayana a potency of Balaram?
There's an actual. You see, when we say that things are expanding from other things, it doesn't mean in terms of time and space. In some cases it does. But there are expansions of Krishna. All those forms are within the body of Krishna. And all those forms, except for the forms that have to do with the creation of the material world, which are wound up again into Mahavishnu, who is an expansion of Narayana. Here's the sequence, okay? Here's the sequence. There's Krishna. His first expansion in terms of a personal expansion is Balaram. The expansion of his energy, of his pleasure potency, is Radharani. Same soul, two bodies. Right? Balaram. Then, when Balaram and Krishna go to Mathura, and in the spiritual world, they're always there. They're both in Vrindavan and in Mathura, eternally. But there, in the Prakat Leela, when they come to the material world, and they agree to follow the rules of time and space, their own rules, well, sometimes they don't, but they look like they're born, they look like they're growing up, except they don't age after 15. Then Krishna marries, and he has who? Pradyumna, first son of Rukmini. And Pradyumna has a son named Aniruddha. These four are actually the first quadruple expansions. And from Balaram, Balaram is called, in that first expansion, Sankarshan. And from that Sankarshan, there's another expansion of his called Mahasankarshan, and from that, the four principal Vishnu forms are expanded, and they situate themselves in the spiritual sky in the four directions and oversee everything. And in each planet, there are expansions of Vishnu who will predominate over each planet, and there's millions of them. Mahasankarshan, sometimes called Narayana. From him, Mahavishnu expands. Mahavishnu is the first expansion of Krishna that has something directly to do with the creation of the material world. The material energy is actually eternal. And when it comes out of the body of Mahavishnu, it looks like a cloud in the spiritual sky. But it's actually the external energy. All the atoms put together in a soup, as the scientists might want to call it in modern science. But these atoms are not like what they think they call the atom. The atom in the Vedic sense is the ultimate particle of matter that you can't divide further. But the atom that they call atom, now they're finding subatomic particles. But that means that they're not reaching the atom. And they never will. Because it's inconceivable. Therefore it says that Krishna is smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest. So from Mahavishnu, he glances at that material energy. And in that glance is time, which enters into each atom, and the individual living beings that were in the previous creation that were wound back up into the body of Mahavishnu, along with the unmanifested material energy, and stays there inside his body until it's time for the next creation. And from the pores of his body, from each pore of his body, comes the seed of a universe. And it comes up into that energy now, which is, ready to act, but not acting yet. And that energy coagulates around those seeds, just like in the womb of a mother, a human, or any mother. The seed goes in, and then the energy which is already there, starts to coagulate and transform, and it creates a body. So all of those laws, the DNA, the directive, instructions that allows matter to look like it does, are all injected right from the beginning, from the glance, and from the pore hole. That's a reflective principle. When we look in a mirror, we see a reflection of our form, and it looks just like us. But it's not. You can touch it, and it's not warm, and there's nothing. Try to have a affair with an image in the mirror. It's nothing. When you raise your right hand, the left arm raises. It's opposite. And when you move away from the mirror, it goes away. It's temporary. So that same reflective principle is there as Krishna, Mahavishnu, expands his energies into that material creation in the beginning. And the whole thing is put into motion. And then the motions and the reactions and actions, they all act according to those codes. Just like the DNA, just like man and woman unite, there's a body, and it'll look like it's looking by a combination of the DNA of the mother and the father. It's simple. That's the principle of creation. So this philosophy of Krishna consciousness is as deep as it goes, because they talk about omnipotent, they talk about omniscience, they talk about omnipresence, but they haven't the foggiest idea how that's going on. Not the foggiest idea. Therefore, they must rely on their sentiments. Emotion. It's all emotion and it's sentiment. And if you try to explain to them what we're explaining, no, not only that, but no, Satan, away, get away, Satan. But wouldn't you like to know more about God? No, we don't. More about God? No, you get out of here, Go somewhere else. Leave us in our, suffering.
Do we clap?
No. Not for me, that's for sure. All right, we'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Shukadev Goswami ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.